gotta be detailed, precise, and informed.
That's DPI.
Welcome back, everybody, to That's DPI. I'm Zach, and that is Tyler over there. And we are in everyone's favorite season of the offseason. It is draft month. The draft is actually less than a month away, right? The 23rd of April is the start of the NFL draft in Pittsburgh, correct, this year? And so we have a ton of great content lined up for you. We will be covering yours, yes, yours, viewer, favorite team, because we will be covering every team in the NFL. All 32 will get coverage from us. So we'll have 4 draft episodes, just like we did last year, covering 8 teams apiece, finishing off with the most spectacular live event that you've ever seen. So make sure that you subscribe down below so you don't miss it. Tyler, what event am I talking about?
We are going to do a That's DPI Live, a full first round mock draft the night before the draft. That's something we did last year. We had such a good time, and we did pretty well on it. I think we got the first 10 picks right and like 11 and like 12 out of the first 13. So we're super excited for that. It's going to be a conclusion to all of our month-long draft coverage. So make sure you guys like and subscribe, turn on notifications so you do not miss your favorite team and their draft coverage.
Right, and more details about the timing of that stream will come out as we get closer, but mark your calendars for April 22nd, the Wednesday before the draft. We will get live Lions and Chiefs 7-round mock drafts, some funky mock drafts. If some viewers make some suggestions, maybe we'll do those mock drafts. So tons of draft coverage on the pipeline. But starting today, we will be doing the AFC West and the NFC East. A lot of top 10 picks we wanted to cover today, but we will be starting with Tyler's team, the Kansas City Chiefs. And I would be remiss if I did not pass it to my co-host to allow him to discuss who the Kansas City Chiefs are taking at pick 9.
I love covering and researching this because there's a lot of discord out there. Originally, the Chiefs were mocked to go get Jeremiah Love after they signed the Super Bowl MVP at running back. That discord has understandably stopped. So now there are 2 guys that a lot of researchers are looking at. So the Chiefs have the 9th overall pick, but they also have the 29th pick, and that's important. For number 9, a lot of analysts are looking at Caleb Downs, a safety out of Ohio State. There is another mock draft. There's a couple other mock drafts that mention Francis Malinois, an offensive tackle out of Miami. And I think this at pick 9 comes down to who's available. If Caleb Downs is available, the safety out of Ohio State, that's who they're going to pick. Period. If he is off the board, which some mocks do say he will be off the board before pick 9, then we're looking at possibly offensive tackle Maui
Noah.
I apologize. It's our first team out of 32, so there's going to be some mix up. But if the Chiefs don't want to make Roger Goodell say that name, Avion Terrell, a cornerback out of Clemson. This is pretty much going to be the replacement for Caleb Downs. If Caleb Downs is not there, you can expect possibly Avion Terrell. And if neither are there, then they might go with that offensive tackle out of Miami. I do apologize. One mistake that I also have already made. It's 1 out of 32. Avion Terrell is mocked to be picked 29 if we don't take Caleb Downs. So if we take Caleb Downs at 9, then we're looking at maybe an edge or a tackle at 29. If we don't get Downs at 9, then we're looking at a corner at 29.
Did you copy my notes verbatim? Verbatim, I say, I think it's the absolute perfect spot for Ohio State safety Caleb Downs since the Chiefs lost Brian Cook and Downs is a top 3 talent. However, there are a few nightmare scenarios where Downs is selected, so they could go with Miami tackle Francis Malinois. And then at pick 29, I also mocked them Avion Terrell to round out the cornerback room. There is one player that I have in my notes that you did not mention, and I'm going to get your opinions on this because you called the Chiefs' 2nd-round pick last year being Omar Norman-Lott more than anybody. Like, you absolutely nailed that. You did mention that he would be going in the first round. They managed to nab him in the
Mhm.
second, but it still doesn't matter. You matched him as a scheme fit to Spags' defense. And so I want to get your opinions on wide receiver Denzel Boston. Any thoughts on the Chiefs going playmaker, but Boston being a larger playmaking wide receiver, something they had in Hopkins for their Super Bowl run, but lost and don't really possess on the roster right now?
Boston is not someone that I've seen a lot in my research at all. I think he could possibly be in my research for the Chiefs.
This would be 29, by the way. There's no way that Boston goes top 10.
Correct. Yes. I don't see him going to the Chiefs because at offense, tackle's the weakest link. Andy Reid just for some reason doesn't trust Jalen Moore, despite Jawan Taylor being just awful in penalties last year, and now we've lost that guy. Josh Simmons has been inconsistent with some family issues plus some injuries, if I'm not mistaken. So if we're going to go offense in the first round, we have to go offensive tackle. And if we do offensive tackle on one pick, then we have to address defense at the other because the Chiefs' defense is struggling. That was their weak spot last year. And we lost the safety and the top two corners. So they have to address defense. That has to be the priority in this draft. But if they do address offense in the first round, it's got to be tackle.
I think that's interesting. And the reason why I had Boston here is only because I think in a situation where they go Downs or Maui Noah, the cornerback class is really deep. Like, even going to the third and fourth round, you can get guys like Ephesians Prysock or some other corners that I think are really talented. And when you look at corners that are good in the NFL, there are some that were taken really early on, and there's a lot of them that were taken later on in the draft. Like, you can get great talent and value late in the draft at corner. You can't really at wide receiver, tackle, edge. Those are positions that you kind of have to draft highly if you want good talent. So with the Chiefs having a whole wide receiver, I think they maybe could go Denzel Boston or someone similar.
The last thing I'll say kind of about the Chiefs, because we do have a lot of teams to cover, is after 29, the Chiefs are back on the board 10 pick. My math's probably bad, but about 10 picks later, at the 9th pick up. Yeah, it's my math's definitely bad there. But the 9th pick of the second round, that might be a good landing spot for Boston. That's typically where the Chiefs draft their wide receivers. Rashee Rice and Sky Moore, two very different players, were both second-round picks by the Chiefs. That's probably where I would lean more of Boston going anyway, is an early second-round pick.
Okay.
And with the desperation that the Chiefs have at secondary, they need a first-round talent corner, not just any corner.
But you do admit that sometimes the Chiefs have found value in later corners like Noel Williams, and Jalen Watson was not that high of a selection. So there is precedent to say, hey, maybe the Chiefs could be looking to find a starting level player at the cornerback position later on in the draft. Jalen Watson was a 7th round pick. I don't think the Chiefs are going to wait that long with their desperation, like you said, but it's not out of the question for Veach and Spags to be like, okay, we can fill the corner with kind of a later round pick. We don't need to prioritize that talent when there's guys like Maui Noah, Downs, Boston, and maybe an edge rusher like Gabe Jacas or Zion Young from Missouri available in that first and second round pool.
Yeah. I do want to talk about Denver next, the team that doesn't have a first-round draft pick. Their first draft pick this year is at the end of the second round, the 30th pick of the second round, nonetheless, at pick 62. Could they trade up? I mean, the reason they don't have a pick is because they traded for Jalen Waddle. So is there anything – is there a possibility of them going back into the first round? What do you think Denver's going to do this year?
Yeah, obviously Denver filled one of their bigger holes at wide receiver by trading their first-round pick away for Jalen Waddle, which we discussed last episode, right? I think the Broncos would be wise to select a tight end or a running back in the second round, potentially someone like Max Clare out of Ohio State. He's a great receiving threat and kind of he's a capable blocker, but he looks more like an Evan Ingram tight end, which is who the current tight end of Denver is, but Evan Ingram is 33 and with 1 year remaining on the deal. So you could make that move. Also, running back could be an issue considering they just lost. There's a little bit of cloudiness in that backfield. Right now, I think the starter is I can't remember his name right now, but I know there's oh man, I'm struggling. Do you happen to remember? RJ Harvey is their current starter slated for this season. So someone like Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love's teammate, could get a lot of looks from Denver in the spot. I've seen many mocks doing Claire or Price at that spot, but they also have a hole at linebacker since they lost Drake Greenlaw. So someone like Josiah Trotter in the second round. But those are just some names to keep an eye on if you're a Denver fan. We don't want you to feel left out. We were so fortunate at that DPI to have every single team select in the first round last year, something that only happens once every 5 to 6 years.
We've got a couple teams that pick multiple times, and that's why not every team selecting. The Chiefs have multiple picks through trade with the Rams. Broncos don't have any. The Chargers have one single draft pick. At pick 22.
Same spot they were last year.
It is, isn't it? What do you think the LA Chargers are going to do? I emphasize LA because I notoriously call them San Diego.
Yeah, so LA they have a lot of needs, right? They have big needs in a fair amount of spots. But I think everyone would agree that a playoff team last year in LA, their biggest issue was offensive line. They could not protect Justin Herbert, whether that was due to injuries on their two tackles they're supposed to get back, or the catastrophic failure that was the Mekhi Becton experiment at guard. Mekhi Becton, no longer a Charger, and he played like crap when he was one. So he's gone, and good riddance as far as Chargers fans are concerned. I think his PFF grade was in the 50s in the latter half of the season for them. So I think that the Chargers have a no-brainer plug-and-play offensive guard to compete with Trevor Penning in Vega Ione. I think that he's been mocked to them a lot. He's the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. No-brainer. Protect Herbert. And if they don't go guard, I like Toledo safety. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who had a wonderful combine, kind of reminds me of a Nick Eamon-Worry of the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, you can get away from taking a talented safety in the first and second rounds. And I think a versatile piece like that could really help the Chargers.
Guard is definitely the weakest link on offense. However, a lot of the mock drafts that I looked at have them looking at defense. Some defensive names that popped up on various mock drafts is also safety Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, but there's also interior defensive lineman Caden McDonald and linebacker Malachi Lawrence. So if they want to go defense at 22, I really think it comes down to best player available for a best defensive player available. There was a guard mentioned. NFL.com reports, or mocks, not reports, but they mock Chase Bisontis, a guard out of Texas A&M. So that's who I'm thinking could be number 22, the 22nd pick, the number 22 pick if they go guard. But I think it's going to be one of those two guys for guard or best defensive player available for the Chargers.
Yeah, I definitely think that those are their two biggest needs, is just like getting bodies on defense and interior offensive line. I think the reason why Chargers fans could be leaning safety is because their two starters last season were 34-year-old Tony Jefferson and Elijah Molden, who graded as the 78th out of 91 free safeties per Pro Football Focus. So you can look to them replacing not just one of those guys, but maybe both of those guys in the draft, starting with Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in the first round. But moving on to our final team in the AFC West, and this one is fairly straightforward, right? Very similar to Cam Ward last year. Last year, we made rookie predictions for Cam Ward's, and we actually never gone over those, so we may have to do that at a later date, see if we were right or wrong. But Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders is fairly automatic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Now, to maybe be a devil's advocate, here are some other possible options. Yes, they could go for Fernando Mendoza. Other options that the Raiders could do is the Heisman Trophy winner from this past year. They could pick the national champion quarterback will be available. And then the popular quarterback out of Indiana is also available. So those are all potential options. And of course, I'm joking because all of those are Fernando Mendoza. They will not be drafting anybody except for that player.
I picked up on that embarrassingly late because I was like, who did win the Heisman? I thought it was Fernando Mendoza. Idiot. Good one, Tyler.
Is there any possibility of them trading number one? Fernando Mendoza will go number one. Is there any possibility of them trading that pick?
No, because it's not a situation in which I think that this team can afford to do something like that, right? Their GM is on the hot seat. I don't think they parted ways with Spytek quite yet. And they are one of, if not the most QB needy team in football. They just tried to bridge quarterback in Geno Smith. Clearly didn't work. So I think it's time to start over with a new head coach and a new quarterback. They're doing it, Tyler. They're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. So this is a great time to select Fernando Mendoza. I think it's a dang layup too, because my pro comp to Fernando Mendoza is a former number 1 overall pick out of California named Jared Goff. And it's not just because I'm a Lions fan that I'm saying that. Fernando Mendoza fits the prototypical pocket passer archetype. He's tall, he's got good but not great arm strength, and he's very accurate and super headsy. Fernando Mendoza won the national championship and went undefeated with Indiana, largely because he's a really, really good pro-style quarterback, and he's very accurate. It's not that he's like this Jaden Daniels type guy where he can run all over the field. He profiles more to a guy like Jared Goff. So I'm curious what you think on that pro comparison.
All of the adjectives and descriptions as to why you think Jared Goff, I agree with. The only thing I would change is the name. The name that I was thinking perhaps is Drake May. For the exact same reasons. He's not a guy, even though despite Mendoza's highlight of scoring a rushing touchdown in the national championship, Mendoza's not a mobile quarterback. He's not a guy that's going to go scratch. He's not the next Cam Newton.
Right. He had 400 career rushing yards at Indiana. It's not his game.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not really May's game either. May's a game manager. He's a pocket passer. He fits the Patriots quarterback mold extremely well. And as long as you don't turn the ball over, Drake May did super well. And that's how I see Fernando Mendoza as well, is more of that Drake May comparison. But I don't dislike the Jared Goff comparison either.
So I think Drake May's a little more mobile than you're giving him credit for. He had a nearly 698, so 700 yards rushing. And then he had 500 yards rushing, both of those higher than Fernando Mendoza's career in college. And those are back-to-back seasons for Drake May. So I think that Drake May profiles a little bit more to a Josh Allen style guy, more of a gunslinger with good mobility, rather than Fernando Mendoza, who in his career has less rushing yards than both of Drake May's starting seasons for the Tar Heels, right? Meanwhile, when you watch Jared Goff's college highlights, he had a lot of that rollout mobility, a lot of that rushing talent. But Fernando Mendoza admittedly is a little bit more athletic. So perhaps he's somewhere in between. But I think Drake May is a little more mobile than you're giving him credit for.
And maybe he is. I was not on the Drake May hype train really up until the MVP voting at the end of the season. So admittedly, I'm not as knowledgeable on Drake May's rushing ability. But if he does end up as either of those two quarterbacks, then that is a very successful draft pick for the Las Vegas. I keep saying Oakland, that I had to actually think about where they're actually located. The Vegas Raiders would be a very good draft pick for picking Fernando Mendoza if he does end up as either Jared Goff or Drake May.
Yeah, he would be a top 3 quarterback in that team's history, right? Especially in recent history. But moving on from fairly automatic pick at number 1 overall, we're going to go to the NFC East, and we're going to start with the most successful team last season, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles, right? They fell, unfortunately, to the San Francisco 49ers, right? So sorry to all of our Eagles fans watching. I know you're like our second biggest fandom, so we know that you're probably still burning the city of Philadelphia in response to that loss. So hang in there because you've got some help coming. Help is on the way, right? Tyler, who do you got for the Philadelphia Eagles here at 23?
There are two guys that I think could very realistically be in Philadelphia. One, sticking with the University of Indiana, is a wide receiver, Omar Cooper Jr. On the corner side, the Philadelphia Eagles have lost some secondary players this offseason, so they could draft defensive cornerback Jermon McCoy out of Tennessee. Those are the two guys that I think it really just comes down to what direction Howie Roseman wants to go in that moment. Perhaps there's still a month of free agency between now and then. If they sign a wide receiver, I think they're going to lean more towards McCoy. If they sign a secondary player, since they've lost some, then you can count on them going more with wide receiver with Cooper Jr.
Interesting. I actually quite disagree with you here on both of those selections. I think that after losing Jalen Phillips, edge rusher Jalen Phillips, that they have to address that position pretty heavily. And if there's two things I know about Eagles GM, Howie Roseman, and it's one, he loves him some void years. The Dallas Goedert 1-year contract had 4 void years tacked onto the end of it. And the second thing is he loves to draft and have a surplus of edge rushing talent. Always has. It was their formula back in 2017, or was it 21? I'm sorry, it was 2021. Well, 2017, 2021, and 2024, right? They had a lot of rotational edge rushers. And so I think they're going to go Auburn edge rusher Keldrick Falk to help complement Jalen Carter and that defense. If they don't go Keldrick Falk, I think that they could take a tackle. In Caden Proctor, it's not necessarily a huge need, but Proctor fits the mold of guys they've drafted in the past, being just a physical specimen. He's like 6'8", 6'7", 350. And he would profile well to probably back up Lane Johnson, who hasn't played a full season in a few years, and potentially take over as the starter. So those are the two guys that I have mocked to the Eagles. And Caden Proctor, widely mocked to Philadelphia, by the way.
Okay. I haven't seen any specific Caden Proctor mocks to Philly. Not saying they're not there, of course. I have seen a couple offensive tackle mocks. CBS Sports predicts offensive tackle from Georgia, Monroe Freeling. I just don't know about edge. Because, yes, while they do select edge rushers, I think they would have to trade. Like, for example, when the Eagles got Jalen Carter, it's because they had a very early draft pick. That's where they got Jalen Carter. And so I think if they trade up, we can expect edge. But at late 20s or early 20s, late first round, I'm just not seeing a lot of edges on the mocks. And again, really, like I said at the beginning, though, I really think it all comes down to what Howie Roseman is thinking in the moment.
Right.
Not saying that he's going to do it on a whim and not plan, but there's just a lot that can happen before you get to pick 23 that will adjust his plan.
Sure. And the only reason why I said edge is because they were really aggressive in pursuing Trey Hendrickson, didn't get him. They traded aggressively to get Jalen Phillips last year to add to their edge room, didn't get him. And now they've lost Jalen Phillips. So you kind of need to replace that need that they clearly traded for last year. They clearly needed pass rushing help. They signed Arnold Ebiketie from the Falcons, but I don't think that he's like a full-time answer. So drafting a first-round edge like Falk could be a choice that they make. Also, the reason that a tackle is being mocked to them, Tyler, is because Lane Johnson will be 36 years old. Which is
I fully understand why they would take a tackle. I just think and predict that they would go different directions.
Understood. And that makes sense. But lots of options for Philly. It's hard to predict exactly what Howie Roseman will do because Jalen Carter kind of fell into their laps because of his character concerns, right? Nobody really mocked Carter to the Philadelphia Eagles last time. But we're going to move on to our next team, and that's Dallas. They have 2 first-round picks because of their trade of Micah Parsons last year. So I'll go ahead and take this one since you took Philadelphia. The Cowboys need defensive help badly, very badly. Go watch the Lions game against Dallas. Their corner that they drafted last year out of East Carolina, Shavon Revel, cooked. And he was cooked in other games too. They need a corner, they need defensive backs, and they probably need linebackers too. But I don't think that any linebackers are going to be there worth taking at 12. I think Sonny Styles will be gone by then. So I think they will get corner, and Jerry Jones is going to take a risk on Jermond McCoy, the guy you have mocked to Philly. I think that he's going to go to Dallas at 12 because McCoy, even though he hasn't played a football game in 437 days or whatever the count is, he is easily the most talented corner in the draft, and Jerry Jones loves his talent. And then also for their second pick in the draft, I believe they go with Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. Get a safety and a corner, double up on the secondary, hopefully help fix their pass defense because they're set at wide receiver. They've got their running back. I think their O-line's in a good spot, right? They've got some pieces there. So,
yeah, no, 100%. I think corner is absolutely who I have. I do have Jerron McCoy mocked to Philly. However, it is important to know that Field Yates out of ESPN agrees with you, Zach, with Jerron McCoy going to Dallas at 12. I think similar to the Chiefs, the one they don't address at 12, they're going to address at 20, and the one they don't, and kind of vice versa. If they dress here at 12, they're going to dress here at 20. Another guy that I have on my board to possibly go to Dallas at 12 is Ruben Bain Jr., an edge out of Miami. Possible linebacker. And again, if they don't address edge at 12, a guy to maybe an edge guy to get at 20 would be Mason Thomas, an edge out of Oklahoma. Other names include C.J. Allen, a linebacker out of Georgia. Who is their running back right now?
Javonte Williams, former Denver Bronco, coming off a 1,000-yard season.
Okay. What are your thoughts on him in Dallas? And there's a point to why I'm asking you this.
I think he was a great scheme fit last year. I thought they used him really well, and I thought he did his job well for them. They needed him to get touchdowns on the goal line, and he had double-digit touchdowns last year. That's all I can say.
I agree with that, and I wanted to get your take because I was shocked when I saw Pro Football Focus mock a trade. Pro Football Focus mocks a trade to pick 3, and they go snag Jeremiah Love, the coveted running back out of Notre Dame. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do feel the need to at least address that.
I just don't. The Dallas Cowboys have made the playoffs once. Actually, I don't think they've made the playoffs since 2023, have they? Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys
yes, this is correct.
Missed the playoffs 3 straight times, largely because of injuries to their quarterback and defense. You cannot be taking a luxury pick and trading away capital to do so when your defense sucks as much as the Dallas Cowboys does. But you mentioned an interesting name, Ruben Bain. I have been having many arguments in many group chats about Ruben Bain. I wanted to get your thoughts on him as a player. He had short arms at the combine, and he was outproduced by his teammate, Akeem Mesidor, at edge rusher. So a lot of people are not super hot on Ruben Bain, once projected to go top 3. That was kind of sliding potentially all the way to 12 at Dallas. What is your thoughts on Ruben Bain?
I don't disagree with anything you said. It is a concern for those reasons, being overpowered by his teammate, the teammate that in my opinion is not going to be a first round pick. But it would make sense for Dallas to take a risk, especially with how I am going to call their defense desperate. So if you need an edge rusher and you have 12, and Reuben Bain, who you also admitted was a top 3 pick being mocked at one point in time, falls to 12, that might be Jerry Jones might consider that his sign to go get him there. Especially, I think it also depends on if any other edge rushers get taken. For example, the Chiefs might take an edge rusher at number 9.
I was going to say, would you be happy if the Chiefs took Bain at 9?
No, I would not.
Okay.
And that's not because of Bain as a player. That's more because of the position.
Okay.
Not saying that we don't need an edge, but there are other positions the Chiefs need a lot more. So I would be upset if the Chiefs took Reuben Bain at 9.
Gotcha.
But that's position-based, not player-based.
Okay.
But if they do take an edge, it might force the Cowboys to go get an edge like Reuben Bain.
Interesting. Okay. And I don't think other edges are going to make it outside of the top 10, like David Bailey, for example, from Texas Tech. I think he's the best edge in the class and will go top 5. So, yeah, Reuben Bain to me is the next best guy. I mean, maybe you could argue some other dude, but I enjoy Reuben Bain a lot. I'm a huge Reuben Bain truther. I think he has great bend and gets a lot of pressures. So that'd be a slam dunk for Dallas as far as I'm concerned. Oh, any corner, honestly, at 12 would be big. Any ones that we've mentioned before, McCoy, Terrell, Mansour Delane, anyone that they think that they can fit their scheme best, I think they just need help. They're desperate, like you said.
I do want to address one name you just mentioned possibly again. Davis Bailey. You said you don't see him getting out of 10?
I don't see him getting out of 5, David Bailey. I think he's incredible.
If he falls to 12, or let me put it this way, actually. If he falls to 9 and the Chiefs don't take an edge, does Dallas go snag him? If he falls to 9 and the Chiefs don't take him? Are you talking about David
Bailey?
Yes, because some mocks do have the Chiefs taking him. So if he falls to 9...
If David Bailey falls to 9 and the Chiefs don't take him, is that what you're proposing? If that happens, Brett Veach should be shot. He should be shot with a gun. Like, that's the stupidest.
Okay.
David Bailey should not make it out of the top 10. He should not make it out of the top 3. He is that good, folks. So I'm discounting your hypothetical only because it's not possible. Oh, hey, Peanut.
Okay.
She's telling you it's not possible.
Okay. Like I said, I like in these mock drafts, especially when we get to, outside of the top 10 on episode 1, I like throwing out chaotic hypothetical trade scenarios or just falling scenarios. Because there's always one that's just like, how the hell did this guy fall so far? There's always one or two guys.
I think it was 2 years ago that the NFL just decided they were going to do a 16-pick run on offensive players, and the Rams picked the first defensive player at 17. So, it's not outside of the realm of possibility, but I do think this draft is heavily skewed in favor of talent on defense. Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, David Bailey, all these guys. They're so good. But speaking of teams that are desperate, the Commanders are picking 7th after making it to the NFC Championship game. Team Unk could not carry them any further this season. They've experienced a lot of regression, a lot of injuries, and now their time with rookie contracts, with a rookie contract on Jaden Daniels, who's probably going to break the market, is coming to an end here soon. So how on earth do you maximize that window? It's not a Super Bowl window necessarily, but it's a window where you have a lot of free money that you won't have very shortly, right? So I'll let you take this one. Who do you think the Commanders will go at 7?
So you mentioned kind of their desperation. One of their key pieces on defense that they could lose still is Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is a free agent right now. And with pick 7, they could be looking to draft his replacement. This is where you've mentioned Sony Styles. This is where Sony Styles, that linebacker out of Ohio State, could come in. Or they could go with Sony Styles' teammate, Arvell Reese, perhaps. I think linebacker is a clear-cut choice. 2 mock drafts that I researched, Field Yates plus CBS Sports mentioned Jeremiah Love at 7. I think he'll be long gone. He is my version of of oh my gosh, I'm blank on the name. I apologize. Love will be gone. So linebacker to the Commanders, Arvell Reese or Sony Styles. Those are my mocks to the Commanders.
Interesting. Where do you see Love going then?
I see him going 4 to Tennessee.
I don't
think he gets out of 4.
It makes sense.
If it's not to Tennessee, it's because someone traded Tennessee for 4. Jeremiah Love at 4. That's kind of my week 1 of draft coverage lock.
Interesting, because I disagree with you. I think that, and the only reason is because Adam Schefter is reporting that Jeremiah Love will not go to Tennessee. And that's such a weird thing to report, that a player isn't going there. But I can't disregard Schefter reporting that. I don't know who Tennessee is going to take. Maybe Arvell Reese instead. Maybe go on defense. They need help everywhere. So maybe they're thinking, oh, we're too bad to take a luxury pick at running back. And I'd say maybe that's correct analysis of the Tennessee Titans situation. Also, they just got a defensive head coach in Robert Saleh. So potentially he's going for the supreme defensive talent that's present in this draft. So those are a couple reasons why. I know we're not talking about Tennessee right now, but the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because I have Jeremiah Love mocked right here. I think he's going to go 7 to the Commanders. The Commanders had a putrid run game. No matter what you think of Bill Krosky-Merritt, he was not good. He was not efficient. There are some other guys there that aren't even worth mentioning. They're all replacement level guys. And Jeremiah Love is decidedly not replacement level. And that's exactly how you elevate an offense that I think already has the tools to be a good passing offense, because Daniels and McLaurin is an excellent connection. I think they need a running game to help take some pressure off of their star quarterback, because he put so much on his shoulders last year. He hurt himself numerous times.
The only disagreement is Love's availability at 7. If Love is available at 7, if I am overhyping Love, absolutely take him over Reese and Styles at linebacker, because he is going to be an electric running back. Just comes down to his availability.
And it's funny that you mentioned Styles, because I'm going to go ahead and transition us if you don't mind. Because I think Sonny Styles is going to go here at number 5 to the New York Giants, our final team of the NFC East. And I have a boatload of evidence to support my claim that Sonny Styles will not be available outside the top 5. Who is the new head coach of the New York Giants, Tyler?
It's Harbaugh, right?
That's correct. There is one thing that John Harbaugh loves about defense, and it's to have a rangy, headsy, athletic, do-it-all Mike linebacker. And he has absolutely proven this by having Patrick Queen, first-round selection, Roquan Smith, traded away a lot of draft capital to get, and also C.J. Mosley. Ooh, that's a little bit of a throwback, but he was also a rangy, headsy, middle linebacker selected. Where do you think he was selected, Tyler? In the first round. That's right. In the first round at pick 17.
City name.
What did you say?
I said Baltimore.
Yeah, of course it was in Baltimore.
You said where? To me, that's a location.
My bad. Where in the round,
You said
Tyler?
where, not when.
Oh, gosh. Roquan Smith, of course, not selected by...
I was connecting the Harbaugh connection is what I was doing. He's collecting Baltimore to Harbaugh, so we get Sony to Harbaugh. That's where I was going with that.
Right, but all those guys were top 20 selections, Roquan Smith being the 8th overall pick. Patrick Queen, I think, was selected later in the first round, but all of them were first-round middle linebackers. That's my point. Harbaugh, in the last decade, has never been without his coveted, precious, off-ball linebacker that does everything. And it's going to fall right into his lap. One of the best athletic profiles we've ever seen from a middle linebacker in Sonny Styles. He's incredible. And Harbaugh would be a fool to not take him here. And I don't think that he is going to be selected by any of the top 4 teams. ahead of the Giants, and I don't think he'll make it out of the top 5 because Harbaugh gets his defensive centerpiece to help anchor what will be a pretty formidable offense, barring everyone's health, in Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Cam Scadaboo, and company. I think that offense can perform and did last year for the most part, and they just need that defense. That's probably why they brought Harbaugh in. So Sonny Styles to the Giants is my episode 1 lock. I don't think he's going anywhere else.
You know, honestly, I'm going to change my ideas because that's a great take, factoring in what Harbaugh does. Harbaugh loves those linebackers. I think putting more on the defense for the Giants would be great. They've already got offensive weapons with their quarterback and running back and their wide receivers as long as they stay healthy. So, yeah, if Harbaugh's confident in the Giants offense, absolutely go get Sony at linebacker. Before you have just changed my mind, I was going to say Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, but thinking about their current wide receiver rooms when healthy, if Harbaugh's confident in that offense already, you can wait on extra offensive weapons. Go get the best linebacker in the draft.
Yeah, and if it hadn't been for the, repeated examples of Harbaugh doing this and the huge glaring need of nobody really on that roster filling that role, plus the fact that, typically in the top 5 you see a lot of edge rushers. Well, guess what? The Giants have oodles of talented edge rushers. They took Abdul Carter. They have Dexter Lawrence in the interior. He's not an edge rusher, but he's a pass rushing interior. They have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. They absolutely, unquestionably do not need another edge rusher. In fact, they could even trade Kayvon Thibodeau if they really wanted to. So I think linebacker is the pure and obvious choice. Not saying that wide receiver isn't a need, but I think that you can get a similar level of talent at wide receiver at the 5th pick in the 2nd round than you can in the 1st pick, because there's not one guy that's separating himself, and I don't think that you can take Tate top 5, in my opinion. Not with all that defensive talent out there.
I don't disagree with you. I really don't.
Excellent. I was able to convince you. That's the one I'm most confident in.
We have our first mind change of the draft coverage.
I'm disappointed you couldn't mind change me on the Chiefs, because last year you totally did. Because I had not even thought of Omar Norman Lott, but we both said the exact same 3 players for Kansas City, and I think that they're beyond obvious.
Yeah, and just to kind of recap, because we started the episode with the Chiefs and have said a lot of names. The Chiefs are our number 1 fan base right now, so I just want to address those Chiefs fans again as to names that you need to remember. Caleb Downs, Francis Malinois, and Avion Terrell. Are those who you would say those 3 names that you want to keep an eye on as a Chiefs fan?
Absolutely. They're the 3 most likely. I think that 2 of those 3 will be Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to lock that in.
Would love that.
Because
and maybe even Boston at that 2nd pick. Boston might be a 2nd pick.
If he falls,
that might be my Omar Norman lot. That might be my Omar Norman lot. If he falls to the 2nd round, they might go get him at that 9th pick in the 2nd round.
But to me, I don't know exactly where he's going. But Downs is my favorite for the Chiefs to select first. And then if it's not Downs, it's Maui Noah. And then Terrell is my favorite at pick 29 if he doesn't go earlier. So I think those 3 guys, if they're not going to be Chiefs, I almost guarantee they're at the top of Veach's board. Brett Veach, the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs. But that does conclude our draft coverage for today. And we weren't initially going to do this until Tyler called an audible. Very Peyton Manning-esque of you, Tyler. We love that. And there's a lot of controversy with NFL referees, and who better to cover it than the That's DPI guys, right? So there's a couple of proposals going before the competition committee for the NFL. Notably,
and this goes with our segment about. I don't want to cut you off there. This goes with our series about calls that change the rule book.
Right.
We're going to talk about a call that might change the rule book here. Go ahead with what's going on at the competition committee. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, you're good. There's a lot of proposals, and a few of them are related to how the NFL is officiated. Before I go over the proposals that are included, I want to go over ones that are not. Because in our first episode of the year, we discussed some potential rule changes. Banning the tush push was unanimous between you and I. We thought that would for sure be addressed. It is not included. The tush push is not being banned in 2026. So I wanted to get your initial thoughts on that. I thought it's crazy, but even Eagles fans were like reacting with, some ellipses on Twitter. I'm shocked that the NFL is not addressing this play when the UFL is.
I think because it did start to get officiated better in the second half of the season, the NFL owners are like, we don't want to push it yet. We're going to wait until it becomes a major problem for a whole season again, like it's been, and then we'll ban it.
Sure. And it does probably, it is probably because NFL teams already voted to keep it just last year. So bringing it up again probably waits another year. But enough with the tush push. Not really much to talk about. It's not included, right? There are some additional changes that are being brought forth. The first one is a proposal to allow teams to onside kick at any time instead of just in certain situations. I think that's great. I would love for teams to declare to onside kick more often. There's also eliminating a loophole in the rules where you can kick out of bounds and gain 25 yards once the team commits a penalty on the PAT. That was an NFL loophole that many teams took advantage of last year, late in the year. I think that's a no-brainer. And there are two rules that specifically relate to our call of the week this week. Number 4 is allow league personnel to consult with on-field officials when considering disqualifications for both flagrant football acts and non-football acts without being called on the field. That's a lot of words to say. If something bad happens and the refs on the field don't see it, but the booth does, the booth can tell the refs and eject the player. This would be the DK Metcalf rule if it goes into play. Because last year, we covered on this channel DK Metcalf swinging at a Lions fan in Detroit and playing out the rest of the game. He was suspended 2 games, rightfully so, because you can't hit a fan. But Tyler and I were watching that game live together, and we're like, why on earth can you not eject guys if it's so plain and obvious? Well, the NFL thought the same thing because the competition committee is going to address that with the DK Metcalf rule. I'm naming it. Tyler's naming it. The DPI crew is naming it that because that's essentially what it's hit to address.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. And I'm excited for that rule because I also think it could be expanded in like fights and brawls. While they don't happen often, if the booth goes back and realizes that Dak Prescott also spit at Jalen Carter, you can go back and eject Dak Prescott too. If there's a fight, you can see if someone swung over here while they're addressing what's going on here, and you can really make the game a lot more justifiable and not just whatever a human sees right here. You can take a good look at those situations and kind of get those consequences when they need to be dealt with.
I think that's a great point, especially with how the NFL officiates contact with referees. Right? We saw Alec Pierce get ejected last year for accidentally grazing a ref, essentially. So in those scrums, sometimes the refs are so focused on getting the fight broken up that they'll get a swing. We covered one in the playoffs, right? I think it was a Super Bowl brawl where a ref caught a fist, but he was so busy breaking up that nobody got ejected. That would be a situation where the booth would call down, hey, Nicky Minwari, I don't know if that's who it was, took a swing at a ref, hit him. He should be ejected for this. They would make the ejection. So good rule, something we addressed last year and would be a call that changed the game. The second one, and this proposal is for 1 year only, and we'll explain why in a second. Allow the NFL officiating department to correct clear and obvious misses by on-field officials that impact the game in the event of a work stoppage involving the game officials. All of that to say that if we get another situation of NFL replacement refs, the booth will be able to overturn calls. And Tyler, Has the NFL ever had replacement refs before?
They have a few times, most notably in 2012. I've got a story for you, Zach. It is September 24th, 2012 to be exact. It is a few seasons, almost a quarter of the way into the season, where the Seahawks and the Packers are playing. This is with replacement officials. It's the end of the game. It's Hail Mary time for Russell Wilson. And what happens?
Russell Wilson takes a deep shot, a rainbow, and it is. What is it? We'll never know. Because I don't know either. There's one ref signaling touchdown, 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 and the other one signaling change of possession. It's an interception. And so these refs are in disagreement with each other, Tyler. Is that right?
That is correct. Now, the rule states that the ball in the air is not biased towards a team. Just because it was thrown by the Seahawks does not mean it's the Seahawks ball automatically. Whoever gets control of the ball first has possession. So in this case, what we would see if we have a replay angle is the Green Bay Packer corner actually grabs the ball immediately after, and it's notably after, the Seahawks player then also grabs the ball. And as you just saw there, They ruled it a touchdown regardless. This is known as both the Hail Mary, because it should have been ruled an interception. Absolutely. It's also known as the game-winning interception. But the Hail Mary is more notable. Yeah, and immediately after this game, the next day, actually, the NFL and the NFL referees came to an agreement, and the following week, the regular refs were back. So the NFL is remembering this play when debating on adding this rule.
And the reason they'd be adding this rule is because, as reported in the last couple of days, that conversations have stopped with the NFL refs. So replacement refs are becoming more and more likely by the day. I, as an NFL fan and a Detroit Lions fan, so desperately want to avoid replacement refs again. But if the NFL does need to have replacement refs because they can't agree to pay their refs a little bit more, I think that this rule is a great step in ensuring that the product doesn't go in the toilet when you have replacing referees that we've already had enough problems with that we started a podcast about it. Yeah. Agree or disagree with the analysis on that one?
Yeah, no, there's no disagreement here. And it wasn't just that play. That play was the final breaking point for the NFL, right? To be like, yeah, it was the breaking point where it's like, oh, we got to get these main refs back. But it was not just that one play. The entire 4 or 5 weeks that there were replacement officials, it was awful. Every play was what people think is happening to the Chiefs now, all right? Just horrible plays, horrible calls, game-deciding calls that get overturned incorrectly because the ref. There was another play where there was pass interference, because at the time in 2012, it was pretty much college refs that got brought up. There was a pass interference call. Zach, what is the penalty for a defensive pass interference?
Spot foul.
Correct. There was a defensive pass interference call. The refs came out and they said, pass interference, number whatever, defense, 10-yard penalty, automatic first down, which was the college rule at the time. They enforced college rules in the NFL, Zach. Is this rule needed if we have replacement refs in 2026?
Oh, gosh. This rule is definitely needed, and it makes a lot of sense. And the only reason that this would get included in this is if the NFL thinks there's a serious chance that they can't resolve this by the start of the season, which is in September. starting on a Wednesday, notably, which we covered last episode. But if the NFL is anticipating that this is not going to be an easy negotiation, meaning that there's probably a lot of movement needed from both sides. So,
and
I'm glad they're addressing it.
I do like the stipulation. I do like the stipulation that they say if there's replacement officials. And not just we're putting it in for the year regardless. It's only if there's replacement officials does this rule pass. So if this rule passes and then the next day or even the day before kickoff, an agreement is signed, that rule is no longer applicable.
Right, 100%. And so I think that the NFL is doing the right thing here, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Rare NFL W. Especially rare NFL officiating W, I guess. I don't know. The policies related to that, I still think that passing a referendum to make pass interference reviewable and then immediately walking it back was really foolish. So I almost hope that maybe for like a game or two, we get some replacement refs and this rule makes the product better. So the NFL realizes, hey, wait a minute. Why are we just doing this for the replacement refs? What if we could fix obvious, terrible calls? I mean, they're doing it for ejectable offenses already. They're having the booth call down and fix it. I think it's clear that the NFL is trying to find the right way to get the booth involved to fix these problems. And with the replacement refs, they just said, screw it. We'll just get them involved anyway, right? So maybe this is a trial run.
Yes, and the rule does stipulate that it's got to be very obvious missed call, correct?
It does. It literally says in the Adam Schefter tweet, so this is per Adam Schefter, clear and obvious. So it's kind of like what replay assist already does, right?
Yes, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to on the show. I also hope we get to see this in action just for like 1 week because I so desperately want to break down to you guys how the NFL defines clear and obvious when it comes to a missed NFL referee call.
So the first call that came to mind when we say clear and obvious is a call that we covered on the show. Sunday Night Football in Philadelphia, Lions, Eagles. That Rocky Ya-Sin where he's more offensive pass interfered by A.J. Brown than A.J. Brown ever was. Do you think that that's a good example of what the NFL will define as clear and obvious? Like missed call should never have thrown a flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I can't wait to get into it.
Just throw up the hands. We have no idea what the NFL defines as clear and obvious. We hope that it's things like that, right? Where the ref throws a flag and it's not a flag and the booth comes in and is like, hey, by the way, it may have looked like it from your angle, but it's clearly not, right? Like there was no grab, there was no tug, there was no effect. So
because we have no precedent on the booth coming in for penalties that were missed.
Sure. The only reason I bring that one up is because there's great angles of it. It's a one-on-one play. You can see every single aspect. It would not be, for example, used to overturn the touchdown in the Rams game that we also debated hotly for like 17 minutes, where you kind of lose sight of the ball, the hands come down, and they rule it a touchdown, even though he would have been down at the 3, right? We debated hotly on that, and we even came to the conclusion that it probably wasn't even a catch, and it definitely wasn't a touchdown after heated debate. I mean, both of us had good points. But if it takes 20 minutes for us to come to that conclusion, looking at every angle in slow motion, that's probably not enough for the booth to step in. Wouldn't you agree?
The only thing I think about is, remember the NFC Championship game with the Rams and the Saints where there was a clear offensive pass interference, right? So beginning the next year, because of that, maybe we can break down that next week, a little hint there, I guess. But because of that, they started allowing teams to challenge pass interference. And it almost never got overturned despite how obvious it was. So I don't know if they're going to consider any pass interference as clear and obvious because of how subjective that rule already is. But if it passes, we will for sure to bring this debate back up as to what might be considered clear and obvious.
I just looked up the rule. I looked up the rule that they used, and it said the standard for overturning pass interference was clear and obvious evidence of a pass interference foul was or was not committed. No! It's never. You're right. It's never going to happen. Great analysis, Tyler. You've hit the nail on the head. But I feel like we can cover all of that and more as the situation continues developing, right? Boy, would it be great for the That's DPI podcast if there were replacement refs. But that is all for now. Tune in for further draft coverage the next 3 weeks and make sure you don't miss any of the episodes or the live stream of the Wednesday night before the draft. But thank you guys for watching. See you next time.
Appreciate you guys.